think we may have quorum from what I see. Betty, you want to check?
Betty, you're muted.
I don't know if you were aware of this, but I've been asked to fill in as secretary for the next 3 months until there's a new election. So I've agreed to do that. And I apologize if I'm not up to date on everybody, but I have Eli Bueno, Catherine Diaz, Steve Simon, Tanya Bonner, Faye Floreman, Curtis Young, Omar Tejeda, Wayne Benjamin, Isidro Medina, Liz Ritter, and Debbie Navabian. Am I missing people? I guess I'm trying
Hey,
to see.
Florimon, Mary Anderson,
Mary Anderson, that's
and
right.
Daryl
Curtis.
Cochrane. Also, Curtis Young is no longer chair of the of public safety. That's now Domingo Estevez. And you're also missing Francisco Lopez, I think, who is chair of business development, and Isidro Medina, who is chair of licensing.
I think you're muted, Betty. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Omar Tejeda, part of the committee?
No, Omar's treasurer.
Everybody, right? So it looks to me like we've got quorum.
All right. I think Domingo, not Domingo, Francisco Lopez just joined in. So we're missing Isidro and Domingo, both. They're not in as of yet. So we're good, Betty? So ready to start? So thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. It's a special moment in our lives. So just like every other moment, we're here. Wayne is not in as of yet. That's surprising. So I want to send him a text to see if everything's okay with him. He's usually the first one joining in. In the meanwhile, so it's 6:36 when I call the meeting to order and get a motion on the floor to get tonight's agenda approved.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have additions to the agenda.
Jim? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, the addition is what I had requested via email, so I never got a response. So I apologize to everybody that I have to keep piping in like that. It's very unfortunate. Yeah, so the request was per the email. One was to find out about our plan for coming back to
Yes.
in-person face-to-face meetings, and I wanted to get an update from the IT task force in terms of where that is, as well as just a general update, because we haven't heard from the IT task force about any updates. I would like to just, hear from, I know some other people were from other task forces were going to make some reports. Well, not going to, but we had as a regular item to get reports from our task forces. And additionally, I wanted to put on the floor to see, what people feel about us holding a public hearing about the Representative Espilat a proposal 717, where CB9 had held a hearing, and since that mostly covers our area, and I want to put on the floor, discussion about whether, about us having also a hearing, because I know that community residents up here also, have questions about the 717 and what that means. So,
All right, on your motion of adding to the agenda what the meetings are going to look like, that's part of my report. Ebenezer has some information that he was going to provide, so that's already taken care of. As far as the rest of the stuff, we can go into new business and we can handle that other part about resolution 717.
okay.
Liz.
Yeah, I just want, Tanya covered most of what I had to ask, but I think that it would be helpful if the template that we use for the meetings going forward just automatically always include as items on the agenda reports from the various task forces, bylaw, DNI, and IT. And that way, if the chairs of those task forces don't have anything to say, they can yield their time. And if they do have something to say, we know that they will be included in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is still on the floor with the addition of report on what the future is going to look like, hopefully when we meet again. So can the motion to approve tonight's agenda, including that resolution and going back to new business. Can I get I would second
Someone
it.
needs to second it.
All right. I was just going to ask for the
Second.
Okay. All right. Great. So beginning our meeting with a
We
small
have to
report.
vote to see, or you have to ask if there are any opposed.
Is there anyone opposing to the resolution on the floor? Assist. Any abstentions? Motion passes. So the agenda is set. It's been accepted by the majority on the floor or anonymously. So going to the report from the board's report, extremely short because I want Ebenezer to really talk about what we've done in the past couple of weeks, the telephone calls and the emails and the communications with several city and state agencies and our landlords as to what the protocols will look like or do look like as we speak. Basically, we've been working with an association from a local association from the TV. It's a local TV production company who reached out to the office and they wanted us to help them with setting up a flu shot mobile in Plaza Las Americas in 175th Street. We worked that out. So in October 2nd, not October 2nd, which date again is, Ebenezer, that they're going to have the flu shot?
It will happen on the 24th, October 24th, this weekend. It will happen.
In October 24th. And in October the 2nd is what we had a local association called Green Arts Live Events, in which they had opera in Plaza Las Americas for the first time. For those of you who missed it, it was a great event and we're planning on helping them out to doing that about every month if possible. So having this my small report, Ebenezer, if you want to talk about what Tanya and both Tanya and Liz talked about in their emails. Ebenezer? You muted. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I was.
No, I said that you can begin your report with our conversations with the city agencies that we talked about in reference to the protocols, Colombia, Alianza, the landlord, as
Sure.
to what it is that we're going to be doing in the foreseeable future.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Upon request of Eleazar and, moved by the emails that we received from board members, we get in touch with our buildings management to find out what is the protocol from the building to get to our building, to use our room and also to use the second floor. The building management sent us an email with all the details that is requirement to get to the building. That is mostly what the city has transpired. People, have to come to the building, wear masks, and be inside the room wearing the mask. However, in order to have a meeting, we will be responsible to check the temperature and do all the other protocol that the city of New York requires. The city of New York is requiring to all the staff to be fully vaccinated or have a negative test every week in order to be able to work in the office. This is the protocol from the city of New York that also apply to people coming to the office. When anyone come to the office, we are required to wear a mask to speak with the public. With respect, we also reach Isabella to find out what is the protocol there. If we need to use, if we can request it, we'll receive a response immediately that the recreation room at Isabella is not available for the rest of 2021, and they don't know what's going to happen in 2022. We request also the guideline from Columbia University for their locations. However, we are still waiting for the response now. But I recall that last year when we started with the pandemic and we had a request, we have a meeting, a schedule. I think it was the general meeting in March was scheduled to be in one of the Columbia facilities. They told me that they're no longer going to be allow people from outside the organization to use their room. Basically, this is the protocol now. What's going to happen going forward? Really, we have been discussing this several times with the Board of President's office, and nobody knows what's going to be happening in the future in January 15, when the exception to the open meeting laws going to be lifted. We are working, and any protocol that the city of New York requires for in-person meeting, we will apply by the time that it comes for us to come back to have in-person meeting. One requirement that the building management mentioned and the city of New York also mentions to us when we have in-person meeting, that social distance must be kept at all time. Basically, that was a summary of the research that we did last week and the week before regarding coming back to in-person meetings. The hybrid option that we would like to happen for the most part, nobody knows about it, because in order to have a valid hybrid option, the law need to be changed, must be changed to allow people to vote from home via a teleconference like we're doing now, and also that merge with the people in person in the meeting. And this is not being discussed at all. The law need to be changed. And this is a summary of what we did, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good. I see two hands that are up. One is Catherine, you go first, and then Tanya, since you haven't spoken as of yet.
Yes, I can turn my camera on. It's not working right now. I guess my first question is, if the building management, for example, will they be checking vaccinations for like when people come into the building, for example? Let's say if we were to have meetings, or is that something that we're responsible to have people in the lobby for?
We will be responsible to do that.
Okay. I'm gonna just pass on because I know that a lot of people want to talk on this topic tonight. So.
All right, Tanya, then Steve.
Yes, my question is about whether there will be a continuation of Zoom access to the public come, the reverting back to face-to-face. How is that going to be handled? Is that going to be done, and how will that be handled technologically by us? And also, I have a second question, which is about, is there a way, it's not a related thing, but I just want to get my question in. Is there a way to improve communication about board member resignations. I know that is there a way to go back to doing like just personnel updates? Whether it's, in the here or in the general meeting, preferably general meeting. So there is a way that people know when there are changes, because I know Ariel left before we even broke for summer. He was, had already, indicated he was leaving. And there were other people leaving. And then of course, Rosie, moving, and no one knew anything about it. Well, some people knew about it, but is there a plan to make sure that we are all informed of these changes? So first, is there a plan to allow the public continue to participate via Zoom, and also communication about board resignations and changes, board member changes?
Well, Zoom calls are here to stay. I mean, not only will continue to be accessible via YouTube and stuff, but we will continue in some sort of hybrid in which people can have not only just they would just not be there, but they will be able to speak and participate in our meetings in some sort of real time. And as far as the board resignations, there hasn't been a procedure in place. Glad you brought that up. We should set up something in which there's consistency. Rosie's case is a perfect example of how communication went one way and we found out later and she's spoken to someone else. So yes, we're working in a protocol in which people are all getting the same information at once, real time. Steve Simon.
I did also have my hand raised.
Oh, it's been raised since last time you spoke, so I didn't realize that you had raised it again. So Steve, since you haven't spoken, and then Liz.
I'm in the middle of chewing, so I don't know if you're going to hear me too well.
So then let's finish and then you can come back to it.
Yeah, come back to me. Thank you.
All right, Liz.
Thank you. I would like, somebody's got a barking dog. I would like to just echo the idea. You are absolutely right. Zoom is here to stay. And I think in a lot of ways, that's a really good thing. It's really increased accessibility to meetings. But I do think that the borough president and a bunch of different agencies have seemed to have figured out how to increase accessibility for the public with a real-time in-person meeting. So the technology exists, and my guess is if we spend a couple of months starting now really thinking through how that might work, we are poised for success to begin some kind of hybrid thing in January or February once we are back to in-person meetings. And hopefully by that time, the New York State Legislature will have taken up some different kinds of legislation to allow for hybrid voting in the same way that they took that matter up back in September to enable us to continue Zoom. The other thing that I would like to suggest is there are a couple of venues in the neighborhood that might also be appropriate. Hello, we have a cute child sighting. Come on back on screen. Hello, cute child. That's my favorite part of Zoom meetings, people's children and their pets. It's delightful. I know that the United Palace has stated a willingness to host meetings, and they have Wi-Fi in a very large space. There are a couple of you, Eleazar, had found the Hudson, which of course, as an outdoor venue, isn't really suitable in January or February, but might be suitable come spring. And I do think that while the general meetings are potentially problematic because of their size, the committee meetings, which tend to be much smaller, I think we have a little bit more flexibility in terms of venue. So if we could maybe put our heads together and come up with some kinds of protocols and best practices for how we might move forward in a hybrid way and in an in-person way, I think that would be great.
Right. We were sort of like adding up to your comment. We, in the Edith Prentice's ceremony up in Fort Washington, MTA had a technology available that allow for people to participate even in real time, not Zoom, something that they call 360, I think is what it's called. And we are in conversations with them. So maybe you want to take the lead on that, and Ebenezer, you can give Liz the number, and then we can start the conversation.
I would be happy to do some research on that and report back.
Yeah, I think the technology is called 360. I could be wrong, but it's just top of the line and very inexpensive from what the technician told me. Steve, you're okay, or am I going to moving on?
Well, Liz actually covered some of what I wanted to say, but I mean, what must be obvious to everybody is that I see this as being a very complicated situation, as long as we would have to maintain social distancing, as long as we would have to be 6 feet apart from each other. It's going to be very difficult even to have committee meetings in person. The only way to do it would be through some hybrid system. Even with committee meetings, I think we're going to have to develop some kind of hybrid and allow people to be able to vote from home.
Okay. Kathy?
No, it was Debbie, because I already spoke on this point.
Oh, Debbie. There you go, Debbie.
Hi, I actually just had a comment on the board changes, and besides the sort of bad news of people moving off the board, I just, even going beyond what's required or who knows what, just generally for just how we're connected to each other, it would be nice to hear the good news too. It would be nice to hear in writing something that goes to the whole board, when we have people stepping into new committee chair roles, to people joining the board, particularly in the off cycle. Maybe bios when we have new people joining. I know we haven't gotten a new directory in a while with a lot of new members, so we can't sort of connect in that way. But I think we need a little good news glue too, to be more connected, and that's sharing all of it, Sorry, I just have to let my kid in the front door. So that was really it. Sorry about the barking and the ringing.
Okay, Timberlane. Jim?
I'm working on it. I have all these buttons to push. I think, this is a very important conversation. And planning is a good idea. However, in some sense, we don't know exactly what's going to happen on January 15th. As we get a better idea, I mean, for all we know, the legislature and the governor will continue totally remote, hypothetically, and this is a very real consideration. When everyone gets inside for Christmas, we might have another COVID surge, in which case they may actually continue this. So I think thinking ahead is very good, but we don't know quite where we're going yet. And I think all of the concerns people have expressed are very important. And the key, as I think several people mentioned, is whether you are there physically or not in a true hybrid meeting, you have the same rights as everybody else, which means you can vote, which means you can raise a point of order. And they have to figure out how to do that. And as I believe Ebenezer pointed out in his excellent description, what we're looking for or whatever may well require legislation. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Daryl.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, just also speaks to Jim's point too. I was wondering, and I'm new to this committee, so maybe it's been discussed in the past, like how far we can go within our own bylaws, within the bounds of the law, as far as voting goes, proxy voting, anything. Like I just wonder if we've gone as far as we can within the current bounds of the law to ensure that people can participate in voting. I don't know if I guess the question was more for Jim.
If I could just, I think you wanted to comment from me. Basically, The way things are set up now, since everyone's on Zoom, we're all equal and we can all vote. And we have a variety of ways of voting. We can do voice votes. We can actually physically raise our hands in the picture. We can raise our hands on the screen. And I don't think we can do any better than that. Now, the thing is, if we suddenly go back to totally in-person voting, then everyone has to be present to vote. And as someone mentioned, everyone sitting 6 feet apart might be rather amusing for a while, but, we might have to yell from one end of the room to the other or something. So that, again, all this has to be worked out. And there are lots of very smart, well-intentioned people in Albany and in City Hall and in whatever the new City Hall is, trying to do the best they can, one would hope. And if we have suggestions, of course, we should make them. But basically, the way Zoom works now, because we have this dispensation for voting in person, everyone gets to vote and it's all very fair. But the basic law says all votes of bodies like ours have to take place in person unless they change things. And that's when it gets interesting. I hope that was helpful.
It was, yeah. And I wonder if there's any difference too between like a full board versus committee,
No.
So, no.
There isn't. It's all the same thing, Yeah.
So it really is unfortunate that we have an all or nothing system. There isn't a hybrid way of doing anything. It's just you're either all in person or you're either all in Zoom.
Well, they have to
Perhaps we need a resolution aimed at the state legislature that they take this matter up in the new session and come up with some new guidelines that incorporate this wonderful gift of technology going forward. Because whether it's in January or April or whatever, at some point, we're going to go back to in-person meetings and we're going to need to do it in a way that recognizes the gift of this technology that we've been using for the last 19 months.
Right. So as I was finishing the sentence, I think that there isn't that in between. So I think that we can, one of us can volunteer. Liz, you've been advocating for this. You can put a resolution together, bring it to the general meeting, and then we can pass it on and have our wonderful
I think
legislators do it.
I think rather than doing it at the general, I think it makes more sense to have something come out of executive. So I'm happy to work on something for us to discuss at the next executive committee meeting so that the executive can pass a resolution for the full board's consideration. And I would be grateful if maybe Jim and possibly Steve or Debbie, who seem to have some experience in their committees and in their agencies with working in hybrid models, could possibly brainstorm with me on that. And then we could have it as an actual agenda item for our next executive committee meeting.
Debbie, the list waiting for an amen.
I was just going to say, I mean, I'd really just rather hear from it seems to me the borough presidents all have a big dog in this hunt for all. And I just don't see why we're spending so much time at the individual community board level. And can't we just hear from Gail about sort of advocating at the state level? I feel like we're spending a lot of time sort of talking in theoretical things. I think we all understand how we'd like to see the world change, but before, I don't know. I'd just like to get to other business personally.
Great point. Great point.
Okay, so we'll continue on. Okay, anyone else has anything to chime on? No? Okay, so we're gonna move forward to Omar's treasurer's report. Wait a minute, I think, sorry, my bad. Is Steve, you gonna say anything again?
I want to pick up on what Debbie said, because I'm under the impression that the borough board has already passed a resolution along the lines that Liz is suggesting. So, and I'm pretty sure if it wasn't the borough board, it was Gail herself who was already sent a letter communicating to the state legislature the fact that we need to adopt a hybrid system. So, Liz, I'm certainly willing to work with you on this question, but let's first check with Gail or with Natalie.
Yeah, there's a letter that was sent out, signed by a bunch of different elected officials. And
Okay, so
there's a letter, not a resolution.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
All right,
So-
so let me find the letter. Ebenezer, we make a note of that.
Can
So I think we
I,
should have that letter.
sorry, I have my hand up, but I just wanted to quickly add maybe perhaps that for future, because things are going to continue to shift and it seems like there seems to be some type of consensus and understanding that we kind of need to wait for legislatures and see where they're moving, that perhaps we keep this as an agenda item as a space for updates within the executive meeting, so that again, we're not planning 3 months in advance and yet we're probably disconnected from what's happening. And then that way that gives us time to kind of compile better responses from Manhattan Borough President's office and from the legislature. So that way it's like, yeah. So space for updates is what I'm advocating for.
All right, so your comment is to leave it on as an agenda item, so that we don't get surprised. We still
Yeah, and like for
delete
me,
updates.
like I have questions. We all do it. Like, who's gonna check vaccination? How are we gonna do the chairs? Like all the like logistical pieces. But it
Yeah,
seems
it's
like what
just
we're actually needing for the next 3 months is updates, so we're aware in which direction we're moving, and that way committee chairs can also let their committee members know in the coming months.
yeah. I'm all for it. I mean, and I hear what Debbie is saying, and I'm probably one of those people that wishes to come back into in-person meetings, but we just had a death that the world knows, just found out this morning, which is Colin Powell, fully vaccinated, the 2 vaccines, died of COVID. So maybe he had a pre-existing condition, or maybe someone else in our board has a pre-existing condition. So it's just there's so much uncertainty that I wouldn't want to put anyone at risk. That's my own personal opinion, considering my own health issues. Mary?
I just wanted to piggyback off comments from Tanya and from Debbie about not getting information about board members, either resigning or coming on board or, being nominated, becoming chairs of committees, going off chairs of committees. I feel like I'm not in the loop anymore at all, over the last couple of months with what's going on. And, it may be part of that I'm not hearing everything that's said. I don't know, but I really feel there needs to be a more concrete way of finding out things rather than finding it out when I get these papers and email, and I'm surprised by most of it. So.
Understood. Thank you, Mary. Okay, so we're going to hear from our treasurer's
Chairman.
report.
Mr. Chairman, I need to do my report.
I thought that was your report. Okay, go ahead.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one, I just want to remind every committee chair to please send your ranking materials no later than tomorrow at noon. Remember, we have this hearing on Wednesday and only have 3 committees ranking. You may probably send it to Paola or Chanel, but I only have 3. Please make sure that we have your committee ranking no later than tomorrow at noon. I need to finish the preparation of the ranking document that's going to be sent to each one of you. Also, I need to inform you that I was able to communicate with OMB today regarding the requests that have been asked last month about a grant from Danis Rodriguez for $10,000. And they are investigating the way that these funds were allocated is different for the monies that have been allocated before to the board. And they're gonna investigate with the concerned member office, with Parks Department, et cetera, to have a clarification on those one. Department of Transportation sent me an email clarifying the agency jurisdiction division on the Little Red Lighthouse this afternoon. It seems to clarify, for this portion of the pass, it belongs to parks. This portion belongs to DOT. This portion belongs to the Port Authority. So I'm gonna flesh out this matter on Thursday at the District Service Cabinet meeting. And also we received a notification from the Department of Transportation that they will be installing a raised crosswalk on the west leg of 181st Street and 4 Washington Avenue. This is the end of my report. Thank you very much. One important thing, Howie Levine from the MTA, he left his position. He moved to another position within the MTA, and the new representative is Ms. Jessica Spanton. Thank you very much. This is the end of my report. God bless you all.
I think you have a question from both Debbie and Isidro, and Jim Berlin as well. Debbie.
I mean, this is kind of for everybody. Maybe I'm projecting my own experience as a newer board member, but I think this was my case in the not just first year I was around, is that a lot of board members don't realize that the budget meeting on Wednesday is mandatory. And I feel like we've been very light on the communications. We send out the date, but I think that people don't know necessarily that this is a big, like a date that's sort of mandatory being a board member. And they also don't really have the context of what it is and how it fits in. And it just sort of seems like kind of late to be coming at people saying, oh, it's Wednesday. So I would just think tomorrow, I mean, I guess is our only choice, that, if something besides like the panelist invite can go out to people, contextualizing their role and responsibility for the budget process and what it is, and how it fits into the larger citywide process, it would be helpful.
Thank you for your comment, but we added to the calendar last month, and we've been sending out the invitation. We sent out the information to the committee members, to the committee chairs, in order to comply with this. We can send another email tomorrow telling the board member, reminded the board member that is mandatory. And the link will be sent. We don't want to send that many links. We have this meeting today, and you send two links today, then but Wednesday nobody going to have the link for the meeting. So
okay. I mean, I just have watched this for a few years, and I know last year I think I put something out to my committee when I didn't see sort of, again, just a broader discussion of presenting what it is and how you fit into the process. And everybody's like, oh, I didn't realize I needed to be. I didn't even like really notice that or whatever. But I guess we'll see. We'll see who shows up on Wednesday.
Yeah, but I think, the whole concept or the whole idea of budget participation begins at the subcommittee levels. And that's where people get their input. That's where people get their learning, the first experience of how the process works. And I think that we've done a decent job, I believe, as to doing our part, which is letting people know that the date is approaching, has been approved in the calendar. So we just need to hit the gas and make it move a little faster. So I agree with you, Debbie. Isidro.
Thank you, Chair. Ebenezer, I missed a part of what you said that is going to be installed at 181st and for Washington. What was that?
Yes, I received an email from the Department of Transportation indicating that they're going to install a raised crosswalk. I think I didn't give it the most detail to save time, but what they describe on the email is that the crosswalk going to be raised. It's going to look like a speed bump, but not that high, that the pedestrian going to cross the street, and they're going to be elevated so the drivers, the cars, can see them when they are crossing. So they're going to be acting like a speed bump to slow down the traffic and also to protect the pedestrian. They said they're going to be installing that soon, probably before the month is over.
So
for Washington at 181st Street.
Okay, so would it be on 4? It will be on 4 Washington, right?
Yes. No, no,
Yes.
it's gonna be,
On the-
no. It's gonna be on 181st Street. It's
Well,
gonna be on
it's Fort,
181st.
it goes north to south on the west side of Fort Washington. So it's, but it, so it's for the west crossing from, across 181st Street, but like kind of north-south.
So it's like coming off of the highway, right?
No, sorry, up
good.
at Fort Washington. So it, and then think of it like a speed bump with a flat top.
Got it.
So you're just,
It's in front of the Starbucks that is there.
yes, right, exactly. It's been a dicey intersection for, you know, just because of southbound traffic particularly makes the turn to go towards the highway, and people get hit.
Okay. Steve? Barry, did you have a hand up?
I did.
Okay, can you go? Sorry, Steve.
Ebenezer actually just answered one of my questions, but the other one, I just wanted to, you know, again, you know, there are new committee chairs who are new board members. And how do they know about the budget? They haven't even been on the board for a year yet. You know, we really need to do something, because you've got to have an understanding of what it's all about in order to be able to chair a committee and get a budget together.
When we have the training for the new board member that we have in the last 2 times, we mentioned the importance of this meeting, and we tell them that this is a mandatory meeting.
Understandably that it's mandatory, but the point is how to do that, how to do the budget. You know, how do you figure it out? I'm still having a hard time figuring mine out. I submitted it, but you know, I mean, I had some issues with it and how to do it.
I understand your question. Just, you know, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help.
No, I mean, I'm done, and I kind of know what to do, but new board members wouldn't know as a committee chair how to do it.
Okay. It is something that needs to be addressed from higher above, and we'll talk. We are getting appointments, sudden appointments, the same way that we're getting sudden resignations on the spur of the moment. No one is really planning out a person, or no one knows when people are going to resign nowadays. People are just
But they're not. But they're not necessarily made a chair right away of a committee to have to be responsible for the budget.
Before there was a process in place in which you had at least the time to have an orientation process. And last year we did have an orientation. We haven't had a chance to have an orientation this year just because of the number of people that have resigned in the board. The turnover is greater than expected. So we're doing the best that we can. Even applications we're getting after people have been in the board already.
I understand that, but I'm talking about the chairs of committees.
That's most of the chairs in our committees have been here long enough to understand the process.
Right, but there's one that's not.
And who's that, Domingo?
Francisco.
Oh, Francisco's been, this is his second year.
Okay,
Francisco,
I was thinking he was newer. I'm sorry.
No, he's not new. He's not. He's not.
My
new.
apologies.
Francisco is an old dude.
Sorry.
So no problem. Steve.
Yeah, first of all, if there is a new directory of the board membership, it would be helpful to get that. I was going to call the office and ask for one because
no problem.
It
should be out this week. We just got a new board member appointed last week.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be yeah.
All right, because there's a guy there's somebody new on the land use committee, and I didn't recognize his name and couldn't find him on the directory I have.
Yeah, we just got a new person on Friday or Thursday or something. So
let me ask Ebenezer. In the past, we always used to put out a flyer inviting the public to come and testify at the budget hearing. I don't remember seeing it this time around. Did we put out a flyer for this hearing?
Yes, check. It has been going out several times, and check the updated calendar. I put it there as well.
No, we had a separate flyer just about.
Yeah, this is
hearing.
For
we
the
did
public,
that, we did that again this year?
for the
Yeah.
public, yes.
Yes,
All right.
it's been going out several times.
Okay, okay. I don't know how I missed it then. I'm sorry. And with respect to the $10,000 allocation from the council member, I'd like to be able to pursue an idea that my committee discussed, which was to use it to expand the electronic waste collections in our area. We've had only one up in Inwood, which has been very successful, but we haven't been able to expand it to the rest of the district, Washington Heights especially. So, this is an opportunity for people to recycle their electronics, computers, printers, fax machines, televisions, VCRs, cell phones, pagers, cameras, and it would certainly help our recycling efforts in this community if we had such a collection. Would save people from having to lug the stuff to stores and to places which are out of the way. So I think it would be a good use of the $10,000 grant, and something that we haven't tried doing before. So I would appreciate it if the committee would take that into account when we finally make a decision on how to spend the $10,000.
Jim or Darrell, who was first? Jim,
You called us first, so now I'm first.
go right ahead. So
Case
we're gonna
before
wrap
beauty.
up with Tanya.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the meeting on Wednesday. As Debbie pointed out, it is mandatory that we, as a board, once the committees give us, their rankings to guide us on what they think we should do, we as the board actually have to do this ranking. And the other piece of it, and I'm as guilty as most, is unfortunately, the ranking process is really odious and irritating and annoying and tedious, and it's almost like cruel and inhuman punishment. So that's the other side of the coin, and that so those are my comments on the subject.
Thank you. Darrell, Catherine, and then Tanya. That'll be the end of this session's for comments.
Thank you. Yeah, my question was about Ebenezer, your report to the Borough Service Cabinet meeting each month. I was wondering if, for the chair and others, if it'd be possible to have at least some sort of uniform list of topics that the district manager should discuss at the present to the Borough Service Cabinet meetings, along with whatever other topic he'd like to. But I think it'd be helpful, and more reflective if we were able to just at least get a list to go by every month from this group or from the chair.
Thank you for your suggestion. However, today I cannot present any report from the District Service Cabinet meeting because the District Service Cabinet meeting is going to take place on Thursday. Preparing the
I meant
agenda.
the Borough Service Cabinet meeting that in the Borough President's office.
Oh, from there. Well,
with all the district managers.
Well, but I can give you probably the minutes that they send me a month after. I can give you that.
I'm talking about what you report to them. That maybe it would be helpful for you.
My report to the Board of Service Cabinet meeting is the same report that I give at the general meeting. A summary also. Sometimes my report starts today. I give you some report that I'm gonna discuss to the District Service Cabinet meeting, and then I'm gonna give you an update on that at the general meeting. What I give at the general meeting, I transfer to the Board of Service Cabinet meeting if it's necessary, literally, or what is being discussed at the time. If you want, usually the Board of Service Cabinet meeting happened after the general meeting in many cases, or sometimes the Friday before. But let me see what I can do for you to keep you in the loop on this request.
Catherine.
Yeah, I don't want to keep beating the same point around the budget hearing, but I've definitely been one that in previous years was upset because we rushed back in September. And so with all the rush of the new year and the budget in the middle, it gets kind of difficult to organize. I just wanted to suggest that, Ellie, maybe it's just like a simple note, because we do get bombarded with the CB12 emails, but just like a personal note at the top, like, hey, if you're new, and I don't mind sharing like a quick paragraph that we can include at the top that just personalizes the email specifically to board members. Last year we had it virtually. And I think it was maybe like we spent 30 minutes just contextualizing why we're even having a budget hearing and what we're discussing. So I don't mind sending some of the language from those slides so that we can personalize it to like, hey, this is for board members, please read this. It's important. Because it also adds time and stress post budget hearings when we don't have enough rankings and chasing down and explaining to people. So we can just send a quick personal note. I think that can help ease out for tomorrow. So I can send something tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Tanya. And then we're going to go to Omar's report.
Yeah, I wanted to just circle back to just communication about changes. And when I spoke about changes, I wasn't just talking about people leaving. All changes for board members, whether they're joining, leaving, things being appointed, all of those different things, that there are changes we should know. And I just think that we have whatever, because I think we heard from people who kind of wanted that or felt like they weren't aware, but we didn't really agree as an executive committee on a system to actually make that occur. And I thought that was what these meetings are for. I didn't think that we were just here to hear updates from various committees, that we actually are sort of looking at some of our processes and figuring out better ways to actually do some of this stuff. And is there a way, something that we as an executive committee can agree that this is the way that we want to have this done, as opposed to people have raised concerns and then it's sort of unilaterally done outside of us, right? So I just personally think that it doesn't have to take that long to really just, get ideas from people and say this is, and it kind of come to some consensus in terms of how, those things should be communicated, so that we know that, and we've decided as a committee going forward, this is how things are going to happen. So everybody's aware this is how it's going to happen, because I don't know how we're going to even do any of this. I just heard, okay, thank you for making that comment. And then it's what are we actually going to do about it? And how people are going to be a part of that process in terms of, as executive committee, being a part of that process in terms of that the level of that decision making.
Right.
So what's the process? Do we have?
So
are we going?
No, this is how we're gonna work. We're gonna work it. So we're gonna have the office. We're gonna come back, and I'm gonna have a meeting with both Paola, Ebenezer, and the staff. And then we're gonna go back and look at the entire committee structures. And then we're gonna come back with a proposal to the executive committee, and we're gonna come back and get everyone's ideas. And then we're gonna start a procedure that hasn't been in place. That's how we're gonna start it.
Okay, but we will have input. That's what I'm asking.
Everyone is gonna have input, but it has to start somewhere from the basics, which is
right. Understood.
Right?
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, understood about that. But yes.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty. Sounds good. Ebenezer, please make a note of that. And Paola, if she's still in the background. So Omar, this is your time to have your report.
Thank you, Chair. Everyone, this is a short report. There aren't many changes from the last report. Primarily, the big change is that the office, as Ebenezer mentioned last month, they encumbered funding for purchasing of new computers for the office, since those computers need to be replaced. So that's the latest adjustment to the board's budget. We're still projecting a small surplus of about $5,000 compared to previous year expenses. That can be, again, up to the chair and the board's discretion of use in terms of what the board would like to use that funding for. Ebenezer did mention the $10,000 for the NYC cleanup initiative. Thank you so much. He's awaiting OMB response. So hopefully we get a response sooner rather than later from OMB on that funding, because the earlier we get it, the better the board is able to react and plan for the use of that funding. And at that point, it concludes my report. Again, we're sitting similar to last month, not many changes. No new funding has come into the budget. we're sitting still at this point.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Tejada? No?
I have a quick question. Included in your inquiry to OMB regarding the possible use of the $5,000, is that only for OTP? Could it be used for OTPS or for PS?
The 5,000 or the 10,000?
The $5,000 surplus.
That would be a question to OMB, whether or not they want to do a modification for PS use. I mean, but what PS use are we talking about?
I don't know. I don't have.
That's the question that I would
have anything
because
specific in mind. It would just be useful to know what are the guidelines in terms of if we can reallocate it, and if so, does it have to be OTPS or could it possibly be for PS?
That would have to be an OMB modification to move OTPS to PS and the justification that you have for it.
Okay.
It's gonna be OTPS.
Okay, thank you.
You can move it to PS.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. So we're gonna move to review the meeting of the calendars for both November 2021 and December 2021. Okay, you guys had a chance to take a look at your November calendars, see if there's any changes that you'd like to suggest. Remember, it's election day on Tuesday. Hopefully it doesn't coincide or the changes had already been made. There are 3 meetings on Tuesday, the 4th, aging, health, of course, at different times, and housing. 2 meetings in Tuesday the 9th, and that's pretty much it. Are there any changes that you guys are planning on suggesting, or you guys feel like we're good for November?
Sorry, I'm just looking for the attachment so that I can.
Take your time.
Again.
Take your time. Isidro, you have your hand up or you change your mind?
No, that was for November, Chair. Thank you.
Anyone? Just waiting on Liz to take a look.
I just have a quick question about the the general meeting being the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I mean, I guess since we're all on Zoom and we can show up at a meeting from anywhere, it probably doesn't matter. So there's really no reason to move it to the earlier week on account of people traveling for the holiday, right? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, in that case, I have no questions.
November.
For those who have, I happen to have 2 meetings on the same day. Just in general, what do we tell committee members when they have this type of dilemma? Like if they are part of the same two committees who meet at the same day, what do we tell them?
What we did last month, and Barbara reminded me of this because I had forgotten, is you get excused from one of them. Since you chair the Business Development Committee, you know, it's always nice to have you at Parks and Cultural Affairs, but since you chair Business Development, seems to me that's the one you should be at, and you would be excused from Parks and Cultural Affairs. You're actually not required to be on that committee anyway, because you're already on 2 committees. You're on Business Development, you're on Executive. So, but yeah, you would be excused from Parks.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying is, what do I tell other members who have the same dilemma?
I don't think that the most times it coincides or overlaps, especially in the special occasions that it has happened, like with Barbara and what Liz just described. So if there are excuses from one of the meetings that they choose not to be on, unless they're a person like you, a chair, in which you're supposed to chair your meeting. So you'll get excused for the second meeting, which in theory, as Liz just also said, you don't really have to be on, just because you have other meetings like the executive and the general meeting to attend to.
Mr. Chairman, if you allow me just a little observation. If the meeting change the date of a meeting, you're gonna be excused if you're gonna make it. Now, if you have 2 meetings on the same date, and one of the meeting happens to be that this is the original day that meeting falls, you are required to go that one, otherwise you're going to be absent. You can be excused to the one that had been changed. Otherwise, if you have something important, you can talk to your chair and let them know. That's what I will recommend,
Okay.
I would say to anyone that calls the office.
But
Anthony?
if this is an ongoing.
Wait a second. Steve, I have 3 hands before
yeah,
your
okay.
comment. Catherine?
Yeah, no, so I was gonna say, first of all, if anyone, it's one thing if it's one time, right? Like because a meeting was moved from its regular day, or we have there was a shift in the month calendar. But if it's a consistent conflict, then that person should definitely reach out to Ellie and to the office so that they can get reassigned, because even though, yes, you can be excused, that shouldn't be kind of like our go-to. And even so, if it's more than 2 or 3 times that happens, just because of some changes, let's say if it's 4 weeks or 5 weeks, I do think we should reevaluate, or that person should speak to Eliezer about, listen, this is going to happen multiple times. I think I should move my committee, because it impacts attendance and it impacts the business of a committee. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and before committee assignments are made, of course, it's always taken into consideration that they don't overlap. But again, that there are Jewish holidays, special occasions in which they do, and then the kind of situation as you just described, this one takes place. Tanya, and then we'll wrap up, move on to December's 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had gotten to December yet? We were only doing November.
We're not in December yet. No, we're still in November.
My question is for December. Sorry. I thought we were.
All right. So we'll get there in just a second. So we're good for November.
So
right.
If I.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you November, December?
No, November. And good evening, everyone. Before anything, I just want to make sure, because I don't see exactly whether or not Ebenezer or you put the calendar. So we are still the Youth and Education Committee for November 8th.
Yes, you are for your regular date. It's no conflict this month for you in November.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, good. So December. Tanya, you had a question before everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not dying on this hill or anything like that, but for the general meeting being the week in between Christmas and New Year's, I just wondered if maybe people would consider making it the 21st. I don't know if there's a holiday, like please don't shoot me or anything. So I'm not aware of all the different things that might be going on. So please, let me know. But I just, I don't know about, people might be on vacation or with family and enjoying that, holiday week and things like that. I just don't know if that's a possibility. People have to, it's just something that I'm thinking about. Like I said, if it's no one cares, then it's fine. But, I just thought that perhaps, it could be before the holidays start, before all the Christmas festivities and New Year's festivities start.
Yeah. Mary? Mary, I can hear you. Mary, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Question on the Health and Environment Committee. It says 6:30 in November and 7 o'clock in December. What's the real time?
Thank you for
the Health and Environment.
Uh-huh.
It's
Still
6:30, Mary.
6:30.
6:30?
Yes.
Thank you.
Liz.
Is there a holiday in December? I'm not seeing it on the calendar. What holiday is in December?
On Saturday, that's why. Well, I guess it would be the Friday or Monday.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing a holiday in December. Can you tell me what holiday that is?
That would be Christmas on Saturday. The
Oh,
25th.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I don't celebrate that holiday, so I forgot all about it.
Understood. Kat?
I don't know if it was me or Jim. About Tanya's resolution, I think it's a proposal. I think it would be interesting to consider,
I
given
was
that,
gonna, right.
because I don't know what the vacation request, let's say with the office staff looks like, for like the new year and all that. So, I mean, it would make the executive meeting and the general meeting back to back. So I do recognize it would be a lot of work for all of us, making sure that all of our stuff is in on time the week prior. But I would be open to having it. That gives everyone about a week free of meetings, based on the calendar, and a nice way to end the year, with a little break. So I'm open to it, but
What it is that you open to
I don't,
keep it on the
I'm open.
28th?
I'm open to having the meeting on the Tuesday prior, which is the 21st, but that does make the executive meeting and the general meeting back to back. And so obviously, is it even logistically possible? Will we get all of our minutes, resolutions, agendas? There's also elections in December. So, I am concerned about, can we manage that appropriately? And if we can, then I'm all for moving it a week up. If we can't, then let's just keep it as is. So I just wanted to respond to that point.
Okay. Jim?
I not only want to second what Tanya suggested, but pretty much that's what we've always done in the past. We've always
Right,
moved up the meeting.
Yeah.
So I think, and we could move the executive committee meeting also if we had to, but I think, Tanya's point, and I think we're all in the same boat, except for those of us who don't remember Christmas, that people would like that next week off, whether you're celebrating Christmas, whether you're just putting your feet up, getting ready for New Year's Day, whatever. So I think we should really try to do that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for being so considerate. Darryl?
Yeah, I would agree with Tanya. I think we should move the meeting up to the week before to give that week off. Also, though, for the December calendar, is it? I don't know if the community board offices are the same as city employees, but do you have off the 24th and the 31st this year because it's the observed holiday? If the office is closed those days, maybe you should just indicate it on the calendar.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we're gonna be off. I believe it's the 24th that we're gonna be off. It's gonna be indicated there. This is a draft.
Yeah, and the 31st. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's it, Darryl? Okay, Liz.
Thank you. To Jim's point, we haven't always moved the meeting to the third Tuesday, but that has been our practice for so many years that when we have taken attendance and looked at attendance, we have considered the usual date of the December meeting to be the third Tuesday in December, not the fourth Tuesday in December, in consideration of freeing up that last week. So I'm not actually sure why this meeting, the general meeting, is listed for the 28th and not the 21st. And what we've done, at least for the last decade, is precisely what Kathy suggested, which is move the executive committee if it fell too close to the usual December date. So I would respectfully suggest moving the executive committee to the 15th. That does that. I mean, that might make it worse for Ebenezer since the district service cabinet meeting is the 16th. I don't know. That's obviously your call, not mine. But our usual date, in air quotes, for the December meeting is the third Tuesday, not the fourth Tuesday, and has been for at least a decade.
Okay, Debbie, Steve, then I'll make a few comments and then we'll resume our conversation with a final decision on December's changes. Debbie.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce. I really don't see how we can have a meeting that week. A lot of people are given off. And it's our elections, and we can't have the risk with our elections to not have quorum or, not have the full complement of people. It's always a big, busy meeting.
Good point, Steve. And then we'll make the final suggestions.
Yeah, I also support moving the meeting up a week. And Ebenezer, could you make a note that the Health and Environment Committee meeting on the 2nd should be posted at 6:30, not at 7 o'clock. We're meeting at this point at 6:30 instead of at 7 while we're on Zoom.
Yes, I made the note already.
All right, good. All right, then do me a favor, make sure that the notices that go out to the public beforehand also say 6:30. We had a foul up for my last meeting, and where the notices to the public said 7 o'clock, where the calendar had said 6:30.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
All right, so from gathering everyone's thoughts and opinions, I think that we are going to move, that we should move the general board meeting to December 21st. And do I have some sort of second, without being a resolution, to move the executive committee meeting to the 15th, as Liz first suggested?
Second.
Any objections to those moves?
No objections whatsoever.
Alrighty then. So here's the final assist. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and can work around it or work at it again. Every other committee date remains the same. The 15th is going to be the executive committee, and Tuesday the 21st, the general meeting.
And just the office closure dates should be listed, and
All right,
the
which
change
is
to health and
Friday.
environment.
Thank you, Kathy. Friday the 24th.
Okay. 31st.
All right. So we're good. So Ebenezer, please send those changes along with everything else that we've agreed upon that every one of us should have. Okay, then moving on to our committee chair reports. Mary.
All righty. We spent actually the majority of our meeting working on the budget and finalizing our requests. DFTA is apparently getting more internet and tablets, or some internet and tablets, into homes and hands of seniors, service provided by the city. However, we have a question about the internet and who's going to continue to pay for it. For the Wi-Fi. So both our capital expense budget requests are around this issue. We have system-wide upgrade of CB12M area to improve access to connectivity and Wi-Fi. And on the expense, a new item, funding for free Wi-Fi access for seniors in CB12. Because we feel it's very important for the seniors to stay connected to the community, no matter what. And with all of these Zoom meetings, they're not able, only one senior center at this point has been able to provide access to our committee meeting with Wi-Fi, but that's for the seniors that can get to the center. And of course, it's only a limited number because of the social distancing factor. So, it's going to be an issue even if other senior centers are able to get connected. So those are real hot items for us, and we hope that everyone will consider that when ranking budget items. Thank you.
Any questions for Mary? No, Mary, thank you so much for all the efforts and hard work you put in. Steve?
Yes, the health department has forwarded the resolution that we passed at our last meeting, asking for a full-time vaccination center in Washington Heights and Inwood. It was forwarded to the Vaccine Command Center. I'm assuming that we haven't heard any Ebenezer or Eliezer, have we heard anything back from the city on that resolution yet? No? Ebenezer?
Not at all.
No? All right, so at this point, it's apparently sitting at the, with the Vaccine Command Center. So mostly at this point, our community is being served by pop-up vans that are providing vaccines. There'll be one on Wednesday from 10 to 6 outside the old Coogan's Restaurant at Broadway and 169th Street. There are apparently some regular vaccine events at a couple of churches up in Inwood, Our Lady Queen of Martyrs and St. Jude's Church. And then it just seems to be catch as catch can is where you can find a place to get vaccinated. The Presbyterian Hospital is giving vaccinations to the community at the Children's Hospital at Broadway and 165th Street. You can make an appointment through the bilingual hotline, which is administered by the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation. It's 646-838-0319. I've made an appointment for early November to get my booster shot at the Children's Hospital. So yes, so the people who previously received the Pfizer shots can now get their third shot at the Children's Hospital and elsewhere. The hospital reports that its admissions of COVID patients have been going down, although they didn't give us any specific figures for the Milstein Hospital or the Allen Hospital. They just gave us figures for their entire system of about 10 different hospitals. There is no news again on whether or not the psych unit at the Allen Hospital is going to be returned. Isabella reports that 99% of its staff has been vaccinated and 89% of its residents. We received a very detailed presentation on the medical center's anti-racism initiative. I'll be getting a written report, which I will attach to the minutes so that all the members can see it. I've been in touch with the Green Market people to see whether or not they're going to bring back textile recycling to the Inwood Green Market. And the good news is that this is one of the first sites where it will be returned, hopefully in the very near future. 4650 Broadway, there was a discussion about this project at the Land Use Committee. My committee had previously reviewed the brownfield remediation that was to take place there. Some of us, I think, have received a letter from people who, from somebody who lives in that neighborhood, voicing concern about the way the demolition is going to be carried out and whether there'll be any measures to tamp down the dust and debris that might be emitted from that demolition. So I'm going to reach out to the developer or the sponsor of the project, or if I can reach the environmental engineering firm that's working on the project to see if what measures they are taking. I went by there today. Frankly, I didn't even see very much activity, but the entire site has been screened off. So when I hear more about that, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Were you able to announce the flu shot at the Hebrew Tabernacle on Wednesday between 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.? Are you aware of that from NYP?
That's right. Yeah, the hospital is sponsoring flu shots at the Hebrew Tabernacle at 185th Street and Fort Washington Avenue. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no boosters. Julio told me, just the first and second shots.
No. It's only the flu shot. Are they doing the COVID-19 vaccine too?
Yes.
No, just the flu shots.
Yeah, I thought it was only the flu shot.
No, it's the first and second vaccine.
Oh,
the COVID vaccines. That's what they're doing.
Oh, and the flu shot.
Right. And no boosters though. That's what they told me.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Right. Okay.
I wish they would do it in more locations and not just Hebrew Tabernacle.
That's what we're waiting on the response on our resolution.
Yeah, with the hospital, I'd like to see the hospital be more to do more outreach and do more of these events, such as the one they're doing at Hebrew Tabernacle. It would be nice to see it elsewhere in the community too. But whatever.
Betty, I think Betty wants to ask you something.
Steve, would you repeat the phone number for the hotline for the appointment at the Children's Hospital?
Yeah, it's a 646-838-0319.
Thanks, Steve. Liz?
Let me just say, if we do get a response to our resolution, I would appreciate it if I would be notified immediately.
Yes, indeed.
All right, thank you.
Liz, there's your report.
Yeah, so, sorry, I've got a bunch of different notes. I'm pleased to report that we just heard from Small Business Services, which weirdly is the agency that oversees docks, that they finally issued the permit for the work on the Muskota Marsh dock. So that will be going forward, I guess, soon. We've been waiting for months for that update, for that permit to be issued. We had a really, as with, I suspect, most of the committees, we spent most of our time on the budget priorities ranking. We have, Parks is a little unusual because we have the only agency that doesn't have its own capital budget. So all of the Parks Department's capital programs capital projects have to be done through funding through elected officials. They don't have their own independent budget. As a result, we have a much longer priorities list than any other committee, and this year is no exception. We have more items for continuing support than most committees have items at all. And many of our items really reflect the climate crisis. We have a lot of things like salt marsh reclamation and repairing the waterfront and the shorelines, dealing with a variety of things that help to support our environment, because our community is being terribly affected by these storms that are, once in a century or once in a lifetime, but they're happening every couple of years or even a couple of times a year. So that's been a huge issue. Our community also has really difficult health markers that are dramatically improved by the presence of quality parks. So we spent a lot of time talking about all of those issues, and I hope that you all keep that in mind when you do your rankings on Wednesday. We did also, I do want to let you know that I did testify at the Public Design Commission around the Row New York project at Sherman Creek. And I just, wanted to share with them the unanimous resolution that this board had passed a couple of years ago, and the overwhelmingly positive resolution that this board passed several years before that. I think that's sort of it. Pretty much everything else is covered in our minutes. So yeah.
No, Liz, there's one more thing you want to announce.
Oh, right. There's a groundbreaking for the Ann Loftus Playground construction. The playground has been closed in preparation for the construction project, but the groundbreaking will be on Wednesday at 11 a.m.
Yes.
No, is it 9 to 11, I think?
No.
11 a.m. You're welcome to get there at 9, but you're going to be bored for a couple of hours. Starts at 11.
Wednesday is the flu shot at the Hebrew Tabernacle. So that's what I got the dates.
Perfect. It's going to be a busy day for you. You get your flu vaccine, then you watch a groundbreaking, and then you can help me deliver meals to the community fridges. Anyway, I encourage people to join. This is a really exciting project. It's going to be beautiful when it's done. And I look forward to seeing many of you on Wednesday at 11.
Great indeed. Domingo is the best. Domingo.
Hey, what's up? Let me see, public safety. We began conversations around gun violence in the community. And then participate in something Robert Jackson did as well. He did a task force, I believe, like 2 weeks later. And yeah, so once I was placed in this position, I basically we're gonna start initiate conversations around gun violence and see what we do through the public safety committee.
All right. Thank you, Domingo. Darrell Clarkman.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Just a couple things. There was one outstanding issue from the last meeting. And you weren't at the last executive board, Ellie, but there was a question from the committee about a hearing on the armory that I guess it was indicated that you were putting together the panel that would be at that hearing. So I don't know if you had any news on that. Maybe we can discuss it later with timing and whatnot. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Any questions for Darrell?
No, that was for you, Ale. I don't know if you heard. There was an outstanding question about, I guess it was said that you would be doing a hearing about the armory. And the question was basically, is that going to happen and when?
There hasn't been, as far as I know. You guys can correct me. I'm sorry that I had mic issues here. Sorry.
That's okay.
As far as having any discussions on the armory, we did pass a resolution before you became chair as to getting a sort of like a board, going back to what the original contract reflects, and so that they could help or be part of the programming. But it would never, hasn't been a discussion on having a forum per se, discussing the armory.
Okay, maybe we can discuss offline how that could take place.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Love the idea. Love the idea.
And just the other things from the last meeting, it was really all about the budget, rankings, and just a big shout out to Marielle for helping with the prepping the committee for the meeting, as well as to Bruce Robertson for running that meeting. So thank you all, and I think it was productive, and we have new members that are learning for the first time the process, and I think it was good for them as well. So thank you.
All righty. Any questions? No? Thank you, Darrell. Faith Lorimon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, well, the Youth and Education Committee have two presentations this past Tuesday, October the 12th. The first presentation was from the from WHEEL, the Expeditionary Learning School. So we have Genesis Abreu, who is the program manager of the Youth Environmental Leadership. So I believe that she recently, I don't know how long, but not really that long that she joined WHEEL. So she spoke about the things that where WHEEL is finding itself right now. Members also have the opportunity to ask questions, but in detail, a few things that I think it's interesting is to know where they are, where they are right now. So some of the things that they are looking at is to putting air equality up front and in the center of the community. They really look into the aspect of green career path. They also looking beyond, their Black to replicate their model and hopefully integrate arts and culture into, their school activity. So Maria and new member Michelle posted two questions, which I think it was actually important. So Maria, for example, asked the question where, what they are looking to do during the winter. So Genesis responded that they wanted to concentrate on the after-school programs, and they also wanted to keep on their ongoing student school. And they also wanted to continue, but I guess putting more emphasis on how they can continue to make more presence in the community, so people really get to know more of what they are up to. So they wanted also to create a community service in hope to they can, increase their community partners. I understood also that they lost a few partners, including the park department. I don't know how is that. Maybe Steve may know something about that, but they say that they lose their partners. She also, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle also asked her that what was the question was, what about the engagement that her school want for community board to get involved with? So she replies that they are very interested in applying for open street program, like having the 182nd between Amsterdam and Audubon, to have, they want to close that street just for the sole purpose to, bring programs in there. I believe that they even submit the application, but I think that it got paused because of the situation with the subway and the bus on the traffic of buses and on 181st. That's what I understood. She also, what was the other thing that I remember that she was saying? Well, more will be actually in our agenda. One thing that they are very concerned is about the parking situation. They say that they don't have access to parking. They have lost a lot of parking spaces, and they really, very concerned about the situation. More will come in our meeting, of course. We also have a second presentation, which was by Ricardo Lopez. He is a representative of the Youth Action Youth Bill. He basically wanted to present about the paid internship opportunity for vocational trainings for young people that may not necessarily are aspiring to go to college, but are more interested in technical or vocational, training. I believe he also the chair also announcing some of the program that an event that they have back on the 14th of this month. Aside from that, we had the opportunity to discuss and also voted on our fiscal 23 budget priorities. So we ended up with 6 items for each, capital and expensive. And the voting was actually captivated unanimously. And the last thing was that I reported about our annual event, Youth and Police Building Bridges. The event went very well. It was well attended, probably not as last as the year 2019 because of the COVID. A lot of people are still receptive in terms of going out and enjoying crowd. But we earned new supporters like Denny Farrell Parks, so they're really interested in supporting the event. We also declare at that event that we are going to be promoting more unity between Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood. So we're trying to bring folks together and open, for more interaction and kind of brotherhood, I guess, idea. So more will come in our minutes, and I guess this should be my report. Thank you.
Okay, Faye, Cesar has a question or a point to make. I'm not sure which.
Sure.
Hi, Faye. So if the school wants to close down that street on 182nd between Amsterdam and Audubon, I think you said.
Correct.
It's going to be awful if they're saying that or worry about the loss of parking space. They're going to lose some more parking space if they close the street. Furthermore, I hope that they are aware that the traffic mess that is being
On 181st.
created on 181st means that all the traffic that would otherwise go through 182nd will have to go through 183rd, thus creating more problems and more pollution for the community. So it's something that has to be thought out, and they should be in conjunction or having some conversations with DOT to have a more comprehensive plan for that area.
Well, in terms of the pollution, they are having concern about that because they say that as a result of the COVID, they feel that the pollution issue has increased in the community and things have really gone really bad for them in that respect. Yes. Oh, I also.
Can I raise, I want to raise my hand. I can't though.
All right, so.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Domingo.
Pues sí, Fe, they invited me to speak to the group, right? And honestly, what I told them was, I was like, hey, look, I'm always for youth, getting involved in the community, engaging the community, organizing the community. But I also told them, right, that one of the most important things is to see what's already out there and then grow from it. You got a project right there on Yeshiva, a few blocks away, where millions of public money was spent and it's still heavily underutilized, So it's like, why are they not maximizing on the spaces that are available and then expand from there? But they shouldn't just, a few blocks away, just do that in front of the school because one, we have that 181st bus lane, which is mayhem already, to then close in a street adjacent to it, So now what's going to happen is, and remember that corridor right there is full of schools, right? If you push every driver to 183rd, because now you have 528, 132, those points, this TEP, and you're forcing an extreme amount of buses and to use that now as a throughway. So I think we have to be like realistic, but also encourage the youth to get engaged. But I think the professor, the teacher has a responsibility to also explore options within the community and expand it from there. I think it's highly irresponsible to push an agenda without seeing the impact that it's going to have on the community.
But I think in that particular street, I think they have a space. Maybe the street can be divided where they can have access to the goal that they have their program, close that part of the street and not necessarily the whole street.
So how about we just close down the entire bus lane and create a green throughway in the bus lane since it's underutilized as it is already when it comes to parking. So how about they move their project to 181st Street instead of 182nd, which is just going to complicate the whole situation there.
Well, maybe that deserves more conversation. So, thank you for.
No.
I just want to say one very last thing because
No, there's not a very last thing. Liz has another question or point to make.
But before
I just want to throw in my solid agreement with Domingo. It's an imperfect world, and I totally understand that the school has a compelling need. But wherever possible, when we can utilize what's already happening and build on it, that's always the way to go. So I would strongly encourage you to use your diplomatic skills in connecting the school to yeshiva, because it may not be a perfect solution, but it's a solution that can be implemented, tomorrow. And getting a little something right now that gets the kids the space that they need feels like a win for everybody.
Well, I can definitely, try that and be the medium between both of them. I will not hesitate to do that, of course.
That's the real power of community boards. The real power of community boards is putting people together and leveraging the relationships that we have within the community and getting people to talk to each other. It's not hard power, it's soft power, but it's super important.
Well, I think this is something that I highly, definitely I feel passionate about. It's something that I've been exercising for years, bringing people together and bringing you that idea and Domingo as well. I definitely appreciate it. And yes, I will follow up on that too.
Yeah. All right. One last question, Catherine.
Yeah, not so much as a question or recommendation. You can also have them attend other committee meetings, so that they can also understand the scope of projects that are happening throughout the community, and be able to listen into those dialogues. Because sometimes, again, this is cross-sectional. So if they're asking for community board support, or if they're coming
Yes.
only to youth and education, they're only going to get 10%. So I would highly encourage the young people from Wheels, the teachers, whoever are showing up consistently to your meetings, to attend other meetings as well, so that they can hear other perspectives and get that scope.
Thank you. Well, yes, I have referred then even to the general meeting in the past and other committees as well. And I think that would be a good idea also, like they can take another, round and come back to other committee, perhaps park. If I can suggest that, definitely, and bring everyone into a CC, so everybody, can be part of the conversation. I definitely can do that. But one point that I want to highlight, because Steve actually asked me a question regarding the building, whether or not they wanted to or interested in moving out of that building where they are. So I posted the question if they planning on moving to another building, or they interested in actually having their own building. So she couldn't answer that question, and that's something that apparently she haven't heard. She wasn't familiar whether or not they wanted to move out of there. So the question actually remained in limbo. So there is no plans accordingly whether or not they want to move out of there. So, but one thing, yes, that she emphasizes is in the fact that they really want to continue with the program. They're really looking for more partnership in the community. And they also wanted to have access to that street. And very last, she also mentioned that only Robert Jackson actually has supported their program. So I don't know. I just wanted to highlight those things, which I think is important. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Faye. And at the end of the day, Cedro, Liz, Domingo, with all the great comments. Community boards are a lot more than just resolutions. You got to get involved, you got to get out there, you have to advocate, you have to get your hands dirty, so that there's a lot of decisions that are impactful in people's lives. And 183rd is the new Cross Bronx, if you ask me. And what's happening there is ridiculous. But anyways, you got not get all riled up. Wayne is not in, so Debbie, next.
I will be brief, I hope. We had DOT for more of an informational item. They will come back in December with more of a robust presentation. But in response to sort of the numbers of issues that were raised, including by resolution of CB12 about Amsterdam Avenue and dangerous conditions, et cetera, they are taking on, there'll be action in a few phases, but they were talking more at our last meeting about the upper section where you head into Fort George Hill, and work with a program out of GW where students partner with DOT in this example to help design the solution. So it's a really neat program. And so those young people who are involved in that program, I'm going to ask for an assist from Omar Tejada, because I'm blanking on the name of the program that has the word change in it. But they will come back with sort of more of a full proposal of the ideas for the upper section of Amsterdam, not obviously forgetting the concerns we have, expressed from 181st Street on up. And there's also some other issues a little bit lower down. But again, so in December, we should hear more on that. On November, tentatively, we will get a first report on the busway. I am, this to me needs to be the first of several opportunities to give input, because with the one train closed at 181st Street, and such like a spike in people taking cars and not public transportation, it's a little hard to tell where we net out. But in the first instance, there's obviously issues that everybody has observed that we've wanted to bring forward to DOT. So that should be November, but we'll obviously confirm as we get a little bit closer. And we had our capital discussion, which I guess people get more visibility on Wednesday. I would say the thing that was new for us this year, which I really liked, was that we had a few projects that had come in and been discussed over the course of the year. And so in addition to the, stuff that we've carried over from year to year, or that might be just sort of bigger, like station rehab or this or that, we have some specific things that really boiled up from the community. So I feel really good about that. And last, I will say on the wheels discussion, they have been around TNT. They did attend several of the busway planning meetings. They have been super engaged. They do a great job over there. To everybody's points, I doubt they're going to get the closed street on 182nd, but and I haven't heard from them in a while, but I do know, but I don't think there's any, it just where it sits, it's hard to see how that comes to pass, but we shall see. I am hoping against hope that any day now my phone will ring from MTA and we'll get some news on the reopening of both 190th A station, as well as I'm still hoping for a slightly early reopening at 181st, but no news to be shared yet. That's it.
David, I think, I'm not sure whether you finished, but Steve is trying to raise his hand. Well, did he raise his hand? Asking for a question, I guess.
Yeah, Debbie, is there an update on from the MTA on whatever work it plans to do to waterproof the 157th Street station on the one line?
No, there is not. I mean, I think the issue is, 157th is, it's not in the capital plan and any of the upcoming capital plans, as I understand it, for sort of a rehab. So then meaning it falls into more of this like repair standpoint, but we're just about to, we're in the midst of a transition to a new person at MTA, and I'll certainly follow up again, but no.
All right, I mean, it looked as though they started doing something there.
Oh yeah, but talking about, sorry, one more thing. I think last week, but people who are up towards Dykeman can maybe tell me, but last week, DOT started to build out the plaza at Dykeman.
It looks great.
Does it? Okay, good.
Yeah, it looks, there's the bike
Okay.
lane is beautifully marked. The parking spaces have been removed. It looks beautiful.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Steve and Liz, for your interjection there. Francisco, and then finally Isidro. Francisco 3. Isidro, you can go ahead while Francisco gets back on track.
Thank you, Chair. So very little to report from a licensing perspective. We had 16 licenses down from 40 of last month. There were 5 rejections due to inconsistencies with the requirements for the postings and what we require for complete applications, for questionnaires, floor plan, etc. And on that note, we also had 2 withdrawals. So very little to report. There were about 6 new licenses that come in. Out of those, 4 were for premise liquor license or full liquor license. And out of those, 2 were approved, 1 was rejected, and 1 of them was withdrawn. Nothing more to report, Chair. Any questions?
Okay. Anyone? questions? No. Francisco, you're last. Steve, is that a question for Isidro?
Isidro, do you know what did the SLA do on the application by, what was it, the Buddha Corporation or something like that for the site on St. Nicholas and 193rd? Did they grant a wine and a wine license, whatever it was for that one?
We're not sure yet because the application was taken into account last month, and the resolution probably have gone out early this month. So I don't know if the SLA has taken any action on that matter yet.
I think SLA meets this week for the resolutions that passed last month. Liz.
Yeah, just one quick thing. Thank you for reminding me, Steve. I see that you have one of the items this month is Buddha Beer Bar on Broadway, which is a completely different venue, and there's no issues with it, and it's completely uncontroversial. And I'm just hoping that since the other Buddha place that's unrelated to it up on St. Nicholas has been, you know, such a traumatizing issue, when you present at the meeting next week, if you could just give people a heads up that the Buddha on Broadway is completely unrelated, because I wouldn't want for anybody to vote against it because they think, oh, Buddha, that place, where, you know, it would be unfortunate.
On that note, the vice chair would introduce other resolutions on the general board meeting, because I would not be able to introduce, but I'll let him know to be sure.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Francisco, last, before we move on to new business and call for meeting adjournment.
Hey guys, yeah, a happy Monday. We met to discuss really about just more of how cannabis will affect our community. We invited two activists, two Latinas, one from the Washington Heights. Her name is Miriam. Let me get her name.
Aristide Farrar.
Yeah, Farrar, and also Pilar de Jesus. Pilar de Jesus represents District 9. You know, we just going over what are some of the things that this community has to look forward to from advocates and people who actually have been smokers for a long time, because those are the people that we really need to kind of get involved to really understand what this plant is gonna, or how is this plant gonna affect our community from the business perspective and moving forward to public advocacy, such as safety, health concerns, aging, the whole nine. So that was pretty much it. We didn't go over the budget because we didn't meet quorum, but we hopefully we can through emails we can get that settled. Other than that, that's it. Thank you guys.
Don't leave just yet. Isidro has a question for you.
Francisco, I have some people that have requested some type of information on how they're going to, they should go about into getting the cannabis license. Do you have an idea how that's going to come out, or which city agency is going to provide information on that matter?
So there was a new city agency that was developed called the Office of Cannabis Management. And they will handle licensing, infrastructure, how everything would play out in the state of New York. Our goal is to meet with some top officials there and bring them to the meeting so we can discuss those type of questions. We don't have they haven't given us a timeline when it comes to licensing. I do hear that 2023 seems like the nearest date they're willing to put out. But yeah, again, the Office of Cannabis Management.
And is it true that only 100 licenses are going to be given out to New York City?
That hasn't been discussed. They're still doing, like, they're still within the hiring process of getting that agency filled. There's still a lot of turnaround that needs to happen for us to get to those questions and have those answers.
Thank you, Francisco.
Liz, Ritter, Catherine, and Steve.
No, my question is actually for new business, not for business development. So.
Okay, so we'll get to that later. So Catherine?
Yeah, just real quick, Francisco, for just as a heads up, I think, and I don't know if it's come up in business, but an idea around the guidelines for small businesses, particularly like restaurants and bars and vaccinations. and make, like if there are folks who have issues, just quickly, like I had an issue of a case of actual like discrimination based on the vaccination card. And, part of that includes training. There are folks from different countries who are tourists. There are folks who may have vaccination cards that look different. And so, I think that's a really important topic, because the last thing we want is, continued issues at our businesses. And simply because maybe like a waitress didn't know what a vaccination card looked like because she couldn't read it in that language, and, being trained on the guidelines. So just as a topic, as an idea, it is something that, I think a lot of the businesses do well, but is an area that some may not be aware of.
And to add to your point, there are undocumented people who have absolutely no legality or any papers. And I've personally been in the 181st Street and 180th in Amsterdam at the NYC flu shot truck. Have been people being turned away because they haven't been able to get the flu shot, just because they're required to show documents that they do not possess. And that's also something that I've already expressed to our elected officials, and there will be an initiative just based on that, on equality or documents, presentations of some of these undocumented folks. So thank you, Catherine. Steve.
I thought at least the COVID shots are being given to everyone, regardless of citizenship status.
Unless you have no papers whatsoever.
Well, I mean, if you're undocumented, you have no papers, but I believe they're supposed to.
Or you have situations that I've also seen where you have outstanding warrants, and you don't want to show your papers because you're afraid of whatever it is that people are afraid of. So there's still some open areas, gray areas, as far as the flu shot and the way that it's been distributed. I just wanted to bring that.
All right, I just wanted to make something clear. Where the Office of Cannabis Management, I believe that Francisco refers to, is a state agency, and I believe all of the licensing for the cannabis distributors is going to be handled at the state level, not by the city.
Yeah, that's correct. The Office of Cannabis Management is state ran.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna move on into new business. Liz, you had a comment to make?
Yeah.
I actually had an item for new business, and I would appreciate if I can get to it before everybody's takes off. But I had first requested to this item for new business. I had actually first requested the item, period, for the agenda, but it was placed in new business.
So you go ahead.
I mean, sorry, Liz, I'm not trying to cut you off, but literally,
I just want a short announcement. So can I just
go. Listen, everybody can go ahead of me. They're doing it anyway. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that on Wednesday's budget committee hearing, I am going to have to be traveling to see my mother-in-law. So I'm requesting some flexibility in when I get my 2 minutes to present my committee's items, depending on where I am with Wi-Fi service, because I may or may not be able to dial in at the right time. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
All right, Liz. Thank you. Hope things go well. Yes, go ahead, Tanya, on your presentation.
It's actually not a presentation. It's more of just, as some people might be aware, Community Board 9 held a public hearing due to overwhelming demand from the community regarding previous legislation that was introduced by Congressman Espaillat regarding renaming parts of Harlem and Washington Heights and parts of Harlem and Washington Heights and Inwood. And there was an article after information had spread about this, that proposal had been withdrawn. Well, not really withdrawn. It had been, I don't know how they put it, but it wasn't that it was taken off the table. It was just kind of tabled for a minute. And a new one called House Resolution 717 was put in its place on October 12th, 2021. And this proposal says a lot of things, but one of which is recognizing the Dominican community's presence and contributions to Washington Heights and Inwood. So I guess Harlem has been taken off of that table, and it's just now this is being concentrated to Washington Heights and Inwood. Reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think that I know once that article, there was articles that had appeared in the patch and some other places regarding the previous proposal of renaming the community, and community members were, I know in our district, and I'm only speaking for District 12, can't speak for Community Board 9s, really had concerns about it. And some of those people joined in on that hearing, including myself and some others, where there were over 400 people who had participated and gave testimony over several hours. And I believe that as these proposals are being pitched for our community, I think our community deserves to get some clarification on what had happened with that previous one, what this is currently being proposed. Is there a chance that this renaming will come up? Because I know it's something that's been reintroduced every year by the congressman to rename the community, and whether that will happen again. They're just questions that the community has. And I think that, a public hearing held by our board would show, of course, our listening to our community and understanding that, just people wanting clarification about what this all means. And so they can, make decisions, informed decisions about whether they want to support it or not. And if they have other questions about what the future holds as far as potential legislation reemerging again, there's some serious concerns about that as well. And so I think, Community Board 9 did an excellent job of holding that space. It was very well organized. It was not, crazy. It was extremely well done. I think the Community Board, should, treat its community similarly, and allow the community to be able to, as well, this community specifically, to hear about this proposal, to be able to to hear some clarification about what this is, and be able to express their feelings or opinions about it. And we get this sort of hearing from our community. I just think that we would be remiss if we do not address, also ourselves hold such a hearing and ensure that our community gets a chance to ask their questions, because Community Board 9 was hearing questions. They focused that meeting solely about their district, right? So it wasn't as if Community Board 12 or District 12 could come in and start talking about things specific to our community. That wasn't the purpose of their hearing. So this district has not had an opportunity to be heard on this issue at all. And so I think that it's very imperative. And I just wanted to, put a proposal on the table that we hold a hearing to get some clarification on these resolutions and what this is going to mean for our community, and be able to hear from our community about, from their concerns or questions they may have. They might not even have concerns, they may have questions about these proposals. That's my proposal.
Faye?
Thank you. I want to ask the question whether or not Community Board 12 has a established relationship with Community Board 9. The reason why is because during this event, Board President Maria Luna trying to connect me with Community Board. I sent also several emails trying to connect with them, but it was nearly like impossible almost to get then, to get in contact with them. So, and that's something that I really would like to establish. And I would like to know also for, if our board actually doesn't have a close relationship with them, but I highly encourage that we start, communicating with them and so forth. I personally would like to meet the Youth and Education Committee and for possible, relationship, because I think that it's very important, very important. So
I can't speak for I
Okay,
can't speak for
so let
Wayne.
me,
I can't speak for I
that,
can't speak for
Faye, is
I
that a question or are we making a comment before?
No,
well there have been a
Hang on a second. Still my meeting. So,
yes.
but I also
is
people
that a
been
comment?
talking back and forth for the entire meeting. Why am
Yeah,
I only
so,
being cut
excuse
off?
me.
This sounds
Can
very
you,
discriminatory. I'm sorry.
No,
It's very
was
discriminatory.
that a
I'm
comment?
trying to respond to her. I was at the hearing, and I also know people on CB9.
Yeah,
I
I
can
know.
respond to
All
her.
right, so Faye, was that,
This is
were you trying to
ridiculous.
make a comment or was that a question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I actually posed a question, which
Okay.
is whether or not with the CB12 and CB9 have a relationship. And also I spoke about my experience, why, I think it's important to have a relationship, because Board of President
Is
and
that,
Maria Luna couldn't.
is that a question directed to Tanya or is that a question that
No, to
the
you, the
office?
chairman. No, the office, you as a
Oh,
chairman.
the office, all right, so the question is directed to me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the answer is yes, there is a relationship. Barry and I have a great relationship, and our offices have collaborated not only on this issue, but we were the people that provided translation services for his office because they never had translation services. So it was from our office that we helped them do that. In other areas that we've collaborated during the pandemic, so we do have a working relationship. And the reason of his meeting is entirely different than what is here, hearing from what Tanya is putting on the table. So the answer, short answer, yes, there is.
Well,
Liz.
I just want to
I'd like to say, I thought we're not doing back and forth.
Yes.
I'd like to say that.
That's what I gave you the word.
Thank you. I have never had any difficulty in reaching out to my counterpart at CB9. All of the contact information for all of the community board offices in this borough are available on the borough president's website. So I would encourage you, Faye, or any other member to pick up the phone and call the relevant board office to get in touch with your counterpart if you ever want to have a conversation with your counterpart in another board. I find them to have, be totally open to good working relationships and working collaboratively. I want to second the overall tenor of Tanya's comments. I too attended the meeting that CB9 hosted. I found it to be extremely informative, extremely well run. Lots of people shared many concerns, asked lots of questions, and CB9 was very, very clear that they were only looking at the aspects that related to CB9, and to the extent that there were aspects that related to CB12, they said, clearly that would be up to our colleagues in CB12 to have, to deal with as they choose. It's not up to us to adjudicate matters outside of our board. So I think they set the bar pretty high for how to have a public hearing on this kind of matter, but I feel that we are equal to the task. And I see that Wayne actually is now on the call, and I'm hoping that he can speak to this matter, because I know that he's that this subject has come up in his committee. So whether we do this as a separate public hearing or whether it goes through his committee is, something that I think we should decide as an executive committee, but I'd love to hear what Wayne has to say.
Okay, so we're gonna still go through the people that had raised their hands before Wayne first
So-
joined us. I see it, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking forward to this possible public hearing, Tanya, because I really want to hear the comments as to why this cannot be a possibility. I can understand both arguments. I understand history, and I respect history. But having to name Quisqueya Heights up here, I see that's not a problem. But I like to hear those comments that are coming from the other end to understand where they're coming from. We have Little Italy, we have Little Haiti, we have Little China, Chinatown. So we have towns everywhere. It is not renaming, from what I gather, the entire neighborhood. The purpose is just to recognize there is a presence of Dominican that have had a lot of cultural values and will have a lot to offer. So I'd like to hear in a public session what are the comments against this possible renaming. And again, it's not an official renaming, it's just a co-naming, because Washington Heights Inwood will never disappear. But I'd like to hear that in public. Thank you, Chair.
Catherine, Jim, Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, I think before even thinking to a hearing, I have just questions in general, right? Because if it was so well attended in District 9, has the congressman's office decided or thought of hosting their own public forum on the matter in Washington Heights? And so just kind of like if they've thought about that, if they said yes, if they've said no, are there any additional public statements? Like I'm not as, updated in terms of the resolution itself and the changes from when it kind of like first came onto the scene. So, I'm not saying like yes, no to a hearing. I just want to know, like, is there anything else moving in terms of public dialogues that isn't necessarily organized and hosted by the community board? While I think, we obviously do have the capacity to do that, have the ability to do that, but I would want to know like who else is working on it. And maybe we can approach it from that perspective, or host it on our own if that's not something that's being moved.
Can I respond to that?
No, because there's no back and forth unless it's a question.
Well, there's been back and forth all night, except when it came to me.
No, there won't be no.
You want me to name all the people that had back and forth?
Jim.
Hello. To begin with, before we do anything, and I believe that anything that affects our area, whether it comes from the federal government or state government, or for that matter, the Russian government, they don't really bother with us. That's something that the people of our community should have the right to comment on. And the other thing is, and Liz, who loves to correct me, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have commented as a community board on federal legislation before. Now, it's true, our main thrust is commenting on stuff in the city to the city government, because the city government sort of has to listen more than the other ones do. But again, we have, commented on, in fact, like I said, we even commented on something that I think the Moscow City Council did. I don't think they were very interested in what we had to say. But then again, our representative in Congress, he may be very interested in what so that's one piece. But the other piece is, before we do anything, I think we, and that means everyone who might attend this potential hearing, everyone who is interested in the topic, should get a totally clear copy of the proposed legislation. So we will see exactly what's being talked about. Because from what I just heard from Isidro, this is going to be some kind of, merely informal thing like a renaming or co-naming. And yet, I believe in an article I saw, they're going to change the name of the post office, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. So again, we need to know what's proposed first. And then, I believe since this is an issue I think a lot of people care about, and it's something that we have to discuss. And I think that this has to be discussed in a very collegial manner. It cannot be us against them. We Dominicans want this, and we everyone else don't want this, or whatever. That's exactly what this mustn't become, and that's will be part of the challenge as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for your comments. Francisco.
Yeah, I understand why District 9, voted the way they voted or felt the way they felt. I think that when we talk about Dominican contributions, while there is a lot of other contributions in that district, I mean, everyone has a clear understanding that District 12 is where if any renaming of anything Dominican would be in this district. I don't expect District 9 to feel the same way District 12 does when it comes to that particular idea. But I think we need to also be careful and kind of going into Jim's point about them versus us. You know, a lot of the stuff that I read, that I've read, that I've seen online comes from folks who are very much have access to internet and Facebook. So there's a lot of communication that's happening with people who can communicate, while the voices of the people that are living here, I would say maybe like a good percentage of folks that Dominicans are not just older folks here or folks who are immigrants who aren't really have access to online, can't put their opinion on there. So one group can see a bunch of people saying one thing and think that's how the whole entire community feels. And it's going to get to a point where it's going to feel like us versus them. And not because of any particular like persons or person, but just the way that we live in a climate where everything is reactionary. A lot of people are very sensitive with the different issues that we have going on currently. And people need to really watch their words because words matter. And this is a predominantly Dominican community. And we need folks to understand that, number one. And I think if we just start from that base, like if this was a mostly Russian community and what the Russian community wanted to name the Russian community something Russian, like we just gotta allow that to be a voice versus, I know I live in a mostly Russian community, but I don't think that we should, like we need to really just, words matter. And that's pretty much what my point of all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Tanya.
I wanted to go back and respond to something Catherine suggested. While I do understand that Representative Espilad has a right and may do his own forum, this community board is not beholden to anything he does. We are our own entity. And I don't think our decision should be based on what he wants to do or what he is going to do. I think if we, as a community board, we are answerable to our community. He's answerable to his community in the way that he is. We're answerable to ours in the way that we are. So our decision about our hearing should be our decision alone and not based on anything. And I'm not saying she's suggesting that that's what it is. I'm just saying, but that should be our decision. And I wouldn't want us to be looking at or using as a compass what he's doing to determine whether we should move forward on a hearing. This is based on public desire to get clarification, to have that conversation. And I think that if it's done well, like CB9 handled it, that it could really be illuminating and answer the questions, like Casijo said, and get this, hear these comments, whatever they may be, or hear from people. And I think that's what we owe our community, is to hear from them on something that ultimately will affect them.
Folks, I'm going to give it to those who have not spoken as of yet. And those are Domingo, Wayne, and Richard Ullman, in that order. Domingo?
Yeah, for me, it's something like, at first I was a little hesitant about the whole like renaming, but what I saw as the aftermath is just disgusting, right? We have different enclaves, right? And I think the beauty of a society is a society that highlights the different nationalities, the different cultures. It speaks volumes to just being able to recognize a community who has been contributing. But once this conversation started, this whole narrative of us versus them was very apparent from the beginning, and I think we have to be very, I think, empathetic towards other people's causes, to hearing certain communities, to understanding that there is a divide in our community where, you have the east and the west of Broadway, different social economics, different beliefs, different demographics. But I think it's extremely important to understand that when you rename something to recognize an enclave that's already there, the question that I would ask is this because it's this particular community? Because it seems like it felt like okay, so you have Little Italy, you got El Barrio, you got all these different sectors within the city, and all of a sudden it's a problem because we're recognizing the Dominican community, and I think we have to be very conscious. And this is not no oppression Olympics either, so don't feel that because all of our ancestors were oppressed in this continent, in another continent, in the countries that we migrated from. So this is not about who got oppressed more than others. I think we have to be very empathetic and really be considerate of how beautiful it is to have different cultures. And sometimes something as simple as a recognition helps boost up the morale of people who are often stepped on because they might not have the political power as other communities who've been here and have been able to exercise more power. So I think it's we have to be very considerate about that and stop making it seem like just because it's one thing is our cause, that cause is prevailing, and we're looking for nice ways of being able to try to use discriminatory rhetoric in a nice little tone. So I would say let's be very considerate, let's be very open, and let's recognize an enclave that's already there. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Wayne, Richard Ullman, and I want from this point forward, I want to streamline the discussion based. This is not the public hearing. This is just opinion based on how we're moving forward.
Eleazar, so I agree with a host of comments vis-a-vis Community Board 12 should have its own informed conversation, because I think it's important for people to know what we're talking about, because it's clear to me that we don't. And there is a lot of confusion, and part of that is the fault of how the written resolutions were handled. I think Liz mentioned this came before land use, and what part of it did. What came before land use October of last year was a very interesting, very well-received discussion of creating I think it's called a non-contiguous cultural district that would be under SHPO as opposed to landmarks. And that was focused on, Dominican history and culture. And if you read the minutes from October of 2020, or, the meeting was probably recorded, it was a very, engaging conversation that went on for more than an hour. And as you know, both the Land Use Committee and Community Board 12 have supported and argued over the years for lots of designations. And, in the last year or so, we've also focused a lot on designations that pertain to culture and history, not just pretty buildings. So that's one thing. But as any of you know, when you have a resolution that says one thing in black and white, and then when it's presented, the verbal presentation is something else, that causes confusion. We've gone through that at any number of meetings. So the HR 77 that everyone got up in arms about, I think after there was an article on Patch, actually did say that, or call for, renaming, not co-naming, renaming Hamilton Heights, Washington Heights, and Inwood in their entirety, but also asking the MTA and Google and the tourist companies to eliminate the names of the Sugar Hill and everything from maps, and only to have Cascaya Heights. So that's what it says in black and white, and I think everyone should take the time to actually read the document. After there was a conversation with folks from CB9 that I was not able to attend, but it was recorded. I was speaking with Lori, who didn't know why there was all of this confusion. I said, Lori, but did you actually read the resolution? Because what you're telling me, which is similar to what Isidro said, that it's, really just honoring that. That's not what it says in black and white. That may be the intent, but that's not what it says.
Right.
And subsequent to that, then the congressman called me and asked, would I assist with, sort of revising it so that it said what the intention was. So the one that is out now, myself and I think an Eleazar and Dr. Nen has worked on cleaning it up. So if the intent was to say you want to honor and acknowledge Dominican history and culture, and you also want to fight against, displacement and all that, that's what it says. But the problem is the process, because the kind of conversation that we had in land use about the historic district, no one had about this resolution. And the resolution has so many different purposes that it's not clear, because if you want to do a proclamation for Dominican Heritage Month, and we've seen proclamations like that, you don't need a 10-page resolution. If you want to support the establishment of a historic district, and we've written resolutions for that, you don't need a 10-page document. If you're putting in the application to SHPO that's making the case for designation, you probably do need a 10-page document and more with supporting documents. So we're being told the resolution has one intent, it says something else, and it just wasn't handled well. And even in some of the subsequent conversations, the references that are made to Little Italy and Chinatown and Little Haiti and El Barrio, where I grew up and spent quarter of a century in East Harlem, none of these are official designated, districts, with the exception of there is a Chinatown, Little Italy historic district under LPC, but the neighborhoods of Chinatown and Little Italy predate that. And so, when you compare it to saying to the federal government, which has no authority, so this is not legislation, which was used a couple times in the course of this meeting. It's not legislation. It's more of a expression of opinion. But if you're saying, the federal government is saying that they recognize this and they want to create or rename a neighborhood, or if you're going to SHPO and say you want to rename a neighborhood, that's different than neighborhoods that have come to be known as Little Italy or Chinatown. And those of you who've lived in New York City long enough know that as those neighborhoods grew and shrank, there was some tension over where one ended and the other begins. In East Harlem, all of Community Board 11 is East Harlem, but all of Community Board 11, if you live there, isn't El Barrio. And El Barrio is not something where it's an official designated geographic area based on what the feds or the state or the city, say. So a lot of comparisons really are not good comparisons, and they've muddied
Google Maps.
Yeah.
And the problem with Google Maps is just that, Domingo. Thank you very much. But the problem is it's muddied the water, and something that was very well received when it was discussed in committee has gotten, a lot of other things, pulled in around it based on how these resolutions that are coming out of the congressman's office have been, written. So we do need to understand, what's being discussed, and, we do need to understand what is actually being requested of SHPO, and we do need to understand how that does and does not, relate to Little Italy and Chinatown and Little Haiti and Little Odessa. They're not the same, and it's not a good comparison. And someone even was trying to say that Harlem was a comparison because Harlem was named by a group of Black people, and it's like, no, Harlem was, the village of New Harlem that was, named by the Dutch, and it became a mecca for Black people, but it's not Harlem because Black people named it Harlem. So there's just a lot of comparisons being thrown out there that are bad and don't help to bring clarity.
Thanks, Wayne, for clarification about not the renaming part. That I think that's critical.
Well, I mean, the point is, the problem is one document actually said
Yeah, the
renaming.
first one.
So you can't
Right.
blame people for objecting to something
Absolutely.
that you said in black and white.
Absolutely.
And therein
Absolutely.
lies the problem. You can't say in a resolution, for example, from land use, that, we support, a rezoning, but when we present it verbally, say, well, no, we're not supporting it. You need to be clear and consistent.
Absolutely. Richard Ullman and then Omar Tejada.
Wayne said much of what was on my mind and more, and said it a whole lot better than I would have said it. So I'll be very brief from there. I think beyond that, Jim Berlin's comments of 10 or 15 minutes ago pointed to the action that needs to come out of this evening's meeting, which is to get us more facts about what's happening. About the resolution itself. Wayne highlighted a number of things.
I actually said that myself too.
I'm
Just
glad
saying.
to share the credit on that. More than glad.
Just saying.
That's the action that needs to come out of tonight, is to get the facts. I think it would be appropriate for Ellie as chair to take the lead in putting a presentation together for next month's executive committee meeting. Wayne, with the history at the land use committee, is certainly part of preparing that. And there's certainly no barriers to anyone else being part of that, but we need the facts to be able to come up with a thoughtful next step.
Thanks, Richard. Omar?
I just want to echo Wayne's sentiment. He kind of touched on everything that I really wanted to bring up in regards to the fact that the push was halted by Espaillat a few days ago, coming right up off of Community Board 9's meeting. And, it's renaming is very touchy subject because it deals with identity, and everyone believes and sees identity differently. So the more that we can provide clarity and information to the community, the better, because as been noted and mentioned, there's a lot of miscommunication around what the resolution's intent was, how it was presented, how it was backwalked. And I think that the more that the community knows, the better. I just want to thank Wayne and everybody else who chimed in on this conversation right now, because it's providing a lot of clarity for everyone on this call. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So,
and I have a hand up.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, because people spoke a long time. So I would like to, as the person who brought this up, I would like to be able to speak. I wanted to say, yes, I hear Richard Ullman, but the way to proceed is to have the hearing. That's the point. Why do we need to have a middle step? That's only going to delay things and only going to create, other obstructions. Why don't we just go ahead and have a hearing and get the clarification? The chair can invite the people, from his staff, from whomever that they, feel that they want to give presentations or whatever. Land use, of course, led by Wayne, do whatever he feels he needs to do, but the hearing could just move forward. There's no reason to take an extra step and do anything other than just, if the point is to get this clarification, then that's what we should be doing. And also we should be hearing from the community, because yes, this resolution to rename the community had been out there, been presented year after year after year, I believe since 2017. People just found out about it, started floating around in the community of what was actually going on. And then when Patch did an article, then it was backtracked, right? Then it was backtracked at Community Board 9, said we're holding this hearing. And then on that very day was the announcement, that, oh, okay, we're going to backtrack this. So, there's a legitimate concern from the community that something has been reintroduced. If you're introducing something year after year after year, there is a certain level of genuine authenticity about that original, the original pitch, which was to rename the community. And so when that's changed, people are lacking trust. And I want to also say something about the hearing. It wasn't us versus them. I thought A lot of those people's comments were very reasoned. They were very, very supportive. I was on that call and I stayed the entire time. And I think people were saying, no one has a problem of recognizing Dominican contributions to the community. That wasn't the issue. The issue was exactly at some of the things we brought up, the sneakiness behind the pitching, the renaming of the community, the lack of engagement with the community about that pitch, and the switcheroo at when it became known in the media. People were concerned about that, and people also had legitimate concerns about why did the community talk about this? There are ways to do these things. There are ways to honor communities without renaming an entire community and wiping out other people's also important history and contributions to those communities. So it's not a either or. Lots of people contributed to these communities. And so I don't believe that's what people were saying at all. People can listen to the tape. I was there and I surely didn't hear that. And I that just wasn't true. So I think we should go forward with this hearing and do what we need to do to really be there for our community and making sure we are helping to answer their questions, because really it's about them, not about us. That's who we're supposed to be representing, and that's what we should be doing tonight. Thank you.
Daryl?
I had my hand up and
Before, not according to the order here.
Actually.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Just a few quick things to expand on what Tanya and Wayne and others were saying. I think for us as a community board, it's incumbent upon us to really, especially in a situation like this, where there can be a lot of emotion and feelings around issues, to really be there for the facts and help promote the facts. Even with, I think someone, said that this is a predominantly Dominican community. Well, that's not true in some areas of the community. Looking at figures from the census itself, I think it's something like 7% less Dominican than it was 10 years ago, and that trend may continue. I don't know, but that's certainly not to discount any contributions from the past, because some people brought up Little Italy. Well, Little Italy certainly is not predominantly Italian in terms of the residents anymore either, but. So I just think in terms of us presenting facts at a hearing like that and ensuring that emotion doesn't get out of hand would be helpful, and is the part we have to play.
Thank you, Daryl, for your comments. I'm going to have Liz, and then I'm going to wrap it up with Wayne, and that'll be the end of our discussion as far as this is concerned, and then we're going to come up with a few ideas on how we're going to move forward.
Thanks. I think that there's very broad opinion on this board, and I'm grateful to Tanya for having raised the issue. I strongly encourage the board to have a public hearing and to invite the congressman so that he or his staff can give a presentation to us in the same way that they gave a short presentation to CB9 to clarify what the new House Reso 717 regarding the cultural district would entail, and to clarify again that he has withdrawn HR 77, which is the older thing from 2017, which talks about renaming Harlem Heights, Hamilton Heights, Washington Heights, and Inwood as Quisqueya Heights, and reaching out to Google and Wikipedia and all of these other entities to change that name altogether. I would also hope that that CUNY could give, again, a presentation of because that was a fantastic presentation. It was very informative at Wayne's meeting last fall, and it was very informative of CB9's meeting. And while I appreciate hearing all of the different thoughts that people have shared this evening, my hope for the executive committee this evening was not to necessarily weigh in on, do we like the idea, do we not like the idea, what are the parts of the idea that we have feelings about, but to come together procedurally so that we can figure out, what is going to be the nature and the date of a public hearing on this matter so that the public can weigh in and so that we as a board can get clarity about this idea going forward, not for us to adjudicate it amongst ourselves. So I would love to get that calendared for, certainly at some, I mean, obviously October is probably too soon, but I would really hope to be able to add that to the November calendar so that we can really get some information on this and then have a resolution if that's what's appropriate.
Thank you. Wayne?
I will be brief. Tanya said something, but other folks said related things. So I just want to repeat, I was not in, or I could not attend that CB9 meeting, but I did listen to a recording of a meeting that happened maybe a month ago, and I was in on a Teams meeting a couple weeks ago where it was discussed, and the people who were objecting to the renaming of communities made it very, very clear that they are in fact supportive of designation of, Dominican cultural district or a street renaming or call it, these are people who have been and are advocates of preservation. They have been for decades on end. So they made it very clear. And if you went to that, I think it was early September meeting, which was recorded, they said that to the congressman's office. So there was no us versus them. They were supportive of the, the designation part of that. What they, didn't like, as everyone has said, is the process by which having no conversation with anyone, you just say rename everything and wipe everything off the face of the earth. The other thing is the perception of what led to what. By the time CB9 held their hearing, they knew that HR 77 was revised to HR 717 because it was provided to them. So it's not that as a result of that meeting, the congressman backtracked or whatever. They knew at the time the meeting was happening that it had already been revised. So once again, just keep our facts straight.
Okay, all great comments.
Speaking on facts,
Francisco.
factual is
Francisco.
the Heights of Inwood is still very much predominantly
Francisco.
Dominican. Just want to add that to the record.
All right, but thank you. But next time, please just raise your hand. I just don't want to create a situation that we have that continuously happen. All right, thank you. So yes, it's important intent and what led to what. I think that's critical. We will reach out to Congressman's office, not to ask for their permission, but to ask for available dates. And then based on those dates, we are going to also ask Ramona Hernandez from CUNY, the Dominican Studies, bring them to replay and redo the presentation that they masterfully did at CB9 and last year at Wayne's committee in October, I believe it was. And then we're going to put all those thinking heads together and we're going to make a wonderful conversation, including community and all the parties that need to chime in and express their feelings. I think that's what should come out of our hearing. Okay?
Can I just
last comment to make? Yes.
Yeah, can I just respectfully suggest that you reach out to your good friend Barry and just get, because I know that you weren't able to attend the meeting, but he might be able to offer you a framework on best practices on how that worked. I was stunned at how just orderly and together that meeting was, and I would love to bottle that man and Victor who helped co-run it. So he might have some suggestions on how to ensure that it's really a successful and educational forum for all involved.
Yeah, the public matters. Steve?
Ellie, I want to make one other suggestion that before we hold such a meeting, we circulate the link for Ramona Hernandez's proposed cultural district so people can acquaint themselves with it beforehand so we know exactly what we're talking about and we're not going off on all sorts of tangents. We should know exactly what the proposal is.
and a copy of the resolution itself.
And also a link to Wayne's October 2020 minutes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
But,
So I'm gonna
all right,
call the
but
meeting for an adjournment.
the confusion arises from the fact that there are two different resolutions and people need to distinguish between the two.
Beautiful, guys. Thank you so much. Wonderful conversation. So I'm going to call the meeting for adjournment.
Do we need to vote on that, or does that just we've come to an agreement? If that's not
I
like,
think we've come into an agreement.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a
Thank
goal. Yeah, has to happen.
cool.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Call the meeting for an
Motion
adjournment.
to adjourn.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Wait, we need a second.
I second.
Second.
I'll have dinner now.
Good night, everybody.
So will I.
Take care.
What do you
Me
have?
too.
Bye.